Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. We have this young fella all the way from Los Angeles, California. There he is, the one, the only Leland Sklar. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Sean. How you doing?
Good, good. So listen, I was doing a little bit of, I guess, fact checking and whatnot, and I found a piece that has been a little bit of a, I'll call it a revolving theme with my show, and that's the importance of networking. And you had talked about earlier in your career how you went out and you really started the network. And I'd be interested to find out, for you, is that still a thing, or you're established to the point where it's not as much of a thing? But I'd like you to talk about that a little bit if you wouldn't mind.
I don't think it ever ends, because every day is going to expose you to new people. I networked in the beginning, not like intentionally. I got to go out and network. It's just when I started, it was the late '60s, and there was such a vital scene going down here in LA at that time that once I met like one person that led to another person. It was such a vibrant community that the networking just kind of happened. It wasn't like one of these things where you were intentionally going on. But I think networking is absolutely critical to anybody that really would like to have a career in the music business, because so much of it is recommendations. You meet one guy and next thing you know, you call somebody and you go, oh, you got to check this cat out. And that's how people's careers have happened. And that still goes on. Now, I've got a project coming up in a week, and I did an album a few years ago with this drummer, and just loved playing with him. And so they asked me, who would you like to play with for this project coming up? And I recommended this guy. His name is Victor Indrizzo. And so I think it's always ongoing, because you're constantly meeting new people, and one of the exciting things about this business, especially from the standpoint of what I do, is meeting new people and having new influences all the time, which really has an effect on your own playing by having
Absolutely.
different energies and different styles and stuff coming in. It adds to your Rolodex of those
Absolutely.
old.
And I'm
Go ahead.
glad you brought up drummers, because I am a drummer. You had a great line. I read a little bit. If the drummer doesn't swing, he should be serving fries at McDonald's. And a friend of mine said, you know what? That might be an insult to the guy that serves fries at McDonald's. But
Well,
what did you mean by that? Because it's a great line.
well, it's a great line, and I don't think I ever said it. And
Ah,
this entire article, I don't recall ever being interviewed for that. So I'm not sure if that ended up. I haven't been able to get to the bottom of it, but there's a whole bunch of things that are credited to me as quotes in it, and it's from Bass Player magazine, I believe, and which doesn't exist anymore. It's
right.
only online. The magazine doesn't exist. But I do not recall ever being interviewed by this guy. I mean, I may have spaced out about this, but I certainly would never degrade anybody's work. If they worked at McDonald's, who cares? They
Right.
got a job, and they're paying their bills and all that. So as soon as I saw that, and some people were writing, going, "This doesn't sound like you," and I said, "It isn't me."
Well, this is my first time meeting you, and I did, and it's funny because I had the pleasure of interviewing Billy Sheehan, and his two
Uh-huh.
asks were, so long as it doesn't go, and I won't say who, but so long as it doesn't go to these two things. And I basically made sure it didn't go there. I'm about being positive. I'm not about getting that salacious headline. I'm glad we cleared that up, because A, I
Yeah,
thought it was funny, but B, I didn't really think it sounded like something you would say. You just seemed like
yeah,
this chill cat that, likes to support people.
yeah. Well, it's weird, when things go to print, it can be really difficult. I did an interview probably back in the early '70s for Bass Player magazine, and the girl that they had interview me, I don't know if she prepared it all, but one of her last questions was, and I was still pretty early in my career, but she said, do you have any suggestions for young musicians coming along now? And I kind of talked about things like networking and professionalism and all that. And they said, well, we'll send you a copy of the article before it goes to print, and you can take a look at it. The next thing I know, it's in print,
Mm.
and and I see her question any suggestions, and a direct quote from me was, "Hang in there, baby." And I'm sitting there going, I sound like Kojak. What the hell is this crap? So
Right.
it's made me really kind of not enthusiastic about doing interviews most of the time, because you're always told, well, you'll be able to proofread it and all that. Next thing I know, it's out there, and then people are already commenting on it. And so this whole thing with, like, if they don't, I would not be saying if the drummer don't swing. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
not
yeah.
part of my vernacular. And
Well,
and
here's what I will promise you, sir. We just met. This will not go anywhere until I get the Leland seal of approval. I don't roll that way. It's a big industry, but it's also a small industry, right?
yeah,
And if you're good to work with, your name gets around. If you're not, the same thing.
yeah. But when you're doing something like this, we're in the moment and we know what's going on. But when something's going to print, you have no idea what's going on at that
Right.
point. So it's a different thing. But I'm confident that we are.
Oh yeah, no question, no question. And and I know you're a busy guy. I mean, like I see what you do all the time, and for you to carve out a little bit of time to do this is
It's my
amazing.
pleasure. My pleasure.
So again, and doing some research on you, and I had a bunch of bass players found out that you were going to be on. They're like, ask him this, ask him that. I'm going to try to
Sure.
avoid the, we'll call them the stock questions, but
No, but you can ask anything you want, because it's always, I can make up a new story every time.
well, your background's interesting because you're originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, correct?
Yeah.
You wind up in Van Nuys. You become, I guess, for lack of a better term, a prodigy piano player who essentially burns out because I don't know if too many ruler hits on the fingers or whatever.
Yeah, a little of that.
But my question would be, and I've always had this theory: if you know how to play piano, you can pretty much play any instrument. What are your thoughts on that? Because I find the chording, the independence, all that stuff, it really sort of sets you up for theory, everything.
Well, I don't think, I mean, certainly playing piano wouldn't have made me be able to immediately play oboe or
Fair
violin.
enough.
I mean, what it does is, piano is wonderful because it gives you a basic knowledge of a great many aspects of music, from melodic and percussive, and the ability to read multiple clefs and all of that. Um, I think the great advantage that piano gave me, ultimately, was the fact that when I actually, my opportunity to step into the world of studio work came along, that I was a really strong reader. So that opened up, I mean, because I know a lot of guys that when the opportunity came to start doing some studio work, not being a strong reader really, it didn't allow you to get into the world of film and television and commercials and all that. So being able to read really gave me a heads up and a one up when those opportunities came along. And but I think that the deeper you can kind of dig into the technical aspects of everything. Certainly, if you're pursuing what I ended up pursuing, which most of it was studio work, you really have to have a big bag of tricks with you all the time. Where if you're going to maybe be in a band, I know a lot of guys. I mean, when I hear about guys like Pino Palladino that still can't read music, I mean, it kind of blows my mind. But uh, you can have an incredible career and not be a reader in this. I mean, you could join a band and that becomes a hit band, and you could be set for life out of that and never have been able to read a note of music. But if you're going to go the world of studio work, the more stuff you've got in your bag, you're so the more opportunities you'll have, and the better the results will be, which gets word out then.
Absolutely. We're just getting started. We're gonna end segment one, go pay some bills, come back with segment two after this with Leland Sklar. Welcome back to Rimshots with Sean here with Leland Sklar. We talked about networking, we talked about some things like that. You're a busy guy. Everybody's got 24 hours in a day, everybody's got 365 days in a year. Do you manage your own schedule or do you have help?
Oh no, I've never had anything. It's always been just me. I've self-managed and self-promoted and self-failed all by myself.
Well, and I mean, and I'll give you a plug, and this isn't so that everybody on that watches my show goes and instantly starts pestering you, but you were amazing at getting back, and very quickly, and busyness happens and what have you, but it must get a little overwhelming sometimes when you get the amount of, I guess, asks and requests, and are you available on this date, and just to play is one thing, but does that get overwhelming for you sometimes?
No, I love challenge. And so to me, uh, I'll get back to people immediately, and just we'll look at it, find a window. There's always a window. You're not busy 24/7 every single day. So there's times that as long as people are willing to be slightly flexible, and we kind of look at each other, um, and just go, well, how's this date? Or let's look at another date. Um, I really I think that's also part of being a bass player. Comes with this, not so much a control freak, but there is an element of that, and a little bit of an element of ADHD and all of those little things that people say now. But I really thrive on challenge, and so like I'm sitting here. I've got a gig this weekend. I got a ton of songs to work on that, while I'm still also working on all the stuff. We're getting ready to go out with Lyle Lovett for the summer with the large band, and so I'm reviewing all the music for that. And it's just like you compartmentalize everything. You just kind of keep it all organized. I'm not chaotic,
I
so
think it's amazing.
I can handle a lot of crap.
And I get the feeling you're a little bit analytical too, or maybe a lot analytical, because just talking to
Totally.
you, I could see the thoughtfulness as you're about to, you just don't splurt something out, which back to the original segment there earlier was, to attribute that to you is way off. Things shut down, as everybody knows, and everybody's kind of affected by it. You're super busy. And I read that you hauled off and you started this YouTube channel.
It was I didn't, I started it by accident. We had just before COVID hit. I mean, when COVID hit, I had a date book that was full for a year that disappeared like a fart in a hurricane. It was just gone. And I was sitting there thinking, well, now what the hell am I going to do? I kind of looked at it as an opportunity, rather than something where you're going, into a funk over it. Not a good funk, but a bad funk. But we had come off of this last Phil Collins tour that we did, his Not Dead Yet tour. And I had guys starting to write to me going, we saw you in Germany or Brazil, and we were doing a lot of stadiums. So, I mean, it was really huge gigs. And they said, the show sounded amazing, blah, blah, blah. But they said, some of the details were hard to hear because of that kind of a venue.
Mhm.
And so I thought about it for a minute, and I love YouTube. I mean, I'm an insomniac, so I can sit up all night and just find things to explore on YouTube, and have fun with it. So I contacted our front of house mixer, and he sent me our show from, I think, Adelaide, Australia. And what I did was I loaded it into my laptop. I've got a little Bose speaker next to me plugged into the laptop, and I have a bass amp. So I thought, I'm going to just play the show, but mix it in such a way where I'm playing along and the bass is the loudest thing you're going to hear, so that people could hear the exact bass lines that I was playing. So I did the first song the first day, and then I did the second song the second day. By the third day, people started writing to me going, man, we love your YouTube channel. And I'm going, what are you talking about? And I mean, I had no idea that turns into a YouTube channel by just putting a couple of things up. And, but I really loved it. And so I ended up finishing the show basically, except for the last song was Take Me Home. And I figure I'm saving that one for when I do my very last YouTube video. I'll close out the channel with that, but I don't have any intention of stopping for a long time, because I'm up to, I don't know, 1,350 videos now, I think.
Amazing.
I'm visiting another album I did with Donovan after we finish our thing today. And there's, I don't know, 222,000 people on the channel, and I have made zero effort to build it. It's just sort of happened by word of mouth.
It's funny. I joke around about this all the time, but you can put something on social media that you think is very, insightful and meaningful, and then somebody finds a potato chip that looks like Richard Nixon, and it goes. So it's kind of like what sticks and what doesn't. But
Oh
what
yeah.
you're speaking to is interesting because I had this conversation this morning where there's so much information out there for people to learn these days, where it makes total sense that you're seeing 6 years old playing your material flawlessly because they can find it versus when you were learning or when I was
Yeah,
learning where you had to put quarters on the LP needle to slow it down, right? It makes
exactly.
sense that this is where we're going. Do you agree or?
Oh, I mean, it's really remarkable what's available out there from a tutorial standpoint. The thing I find somewhat disappointing, and I've talked about it a number of times on my posts, and I don't mean I'm not denigrating anybody at this, but it seems, at least when I see all the bass, I'm sure you see the same thing with drummers, but when I see all the bass videos, I would say 98% of them are about chops.
Oh,
And have,
no question.
but I see almost nobody posting anything to describe how to create a part for a song. It's like I feel like I'm at the NAM show watching all this stuff, just guys showing off how fast they can play and doing double tapping and all kinds of shit. It's fascinating to me. I mean, there's people that have such remarkable skills that I'm watching, but I get bored really fast watching that. It's not touching my heart at all. It's intellectual playing. And I've talked to the Berkeley people about that, and all of them. I just go, it'd be if somebody just sat down and then they showed like a song, and then they showed how they would come up with a melodic bass part or something that would enhance the song. That's what I miss. That's the one thing I think that would be beneficial to young players coming up, is it would be more that kind of tutorial.
What a great line. It's intellectual playing, it doesn't touch the heart. And I've been trying to figure out because I mean, you can hear a 6-year-old play, Tom Sawyer flawlessly. It's like it's
Yeah.
incredible, but or you get these kids that are doing certain things, but there's sometimes there just seems to be something missing. And I think you nailed it. It's intellectual playing, it's not from the heart.
Can you hold on 1 second? This could be
Absolutely.
edited out. I had to talk to my plumber. I've got a problem.
Uh-oh. So as we're doing that,
Hello. Hey, Gary. No, I'm doing good. I'm right in the middle of a Zoom with a guy up in Nova Scotia, I believe.
sir.
But no. But what's going on here? Okay, sounds good. Okay, Gary. Bye bye.
That was awesome.
I mean, it's just like it's like when I was a kid, one of the people that would come on the old Ed Sullivan show was the plate spinner. And the guy would have all the sticks with the plates going for the whole thing, trying to get. And I feel like that all the time, or like a juggler. You keep adding balls and you're trying to keep everything up in the air. So,
Absolutely. It's funny.
it
That's
never
great.
ends.
We're going to get the last segment here, sir.
But
And
I'm good time wise, so don't worry about it.
well, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean. We're here with Leland Sklar, who has a plumbing problem that hopefully is going to get addressed. But
Not physical. It's actual real plumbing in the house. It's not like I'm leaking or anything like this.
well, I don't know what the temperatures are today, but that would be terrible to have scalding hot water in Los Angeles.
It's hot.
Yeah,
It's going to be probably in the 80s today.
nice. Uh, so hopefully this was a quote or a piece that was attributed to you because I like the vibe of it, and it was basically to paraphrase, you understand accompanying people, and your whole job is really to help singers or help the singer do their part.
Yeah.
Which I really liked because I find sometimes people, a friend of mine calls it putting 10 pounds of bologna in a 2-pound bag, and they miss the vibe and what the singer's trying to do.
Yeah.
Expand on that a little bit because I found that to be a fascinating statement.
Well, it's the major bulk of my work has been as an accompanist. And to me, being an accompanist means you're not, I can direct things in terms of, like, I can change some bass notes and things like that can redirect like the melodic structure of a song. But at the end of the day, if I'm working with a singer and they suddenly they want to take a pause and take a breath and then sing, I'm not going to be there before their downbeat. You
Hmm.
really have to be listening to them and respond to what they're doing, because they really are the essence of the song. And to me, so much of that came from the really great fortune for me of the very first artist that I really came to prominence, or whatever you want to call it, was James Taylor. And so here's a guy who plays, number one, the most unique styles of guitar, because he's percussive in his playing. He's got a working bass line always going on with his thumb. And it was really interesting wrapping my head around, how am I going to work with this guy, because he's already doing it all.
Ah,
And so it made me kind of sit back and think about more melodic parts that could weave around the bass part that he's already created, or I would copy him. But I've done sessions with singers where there would be like a pianist on it, and they're just plowing along. And I would finally just stop and I go, give it a breath, just take it easy, calm down here. Just listen to this singer and let them dictate what's going on. And it doesn't have to be like a ballad thing. You could be doing a metal project or anything like that, but you really want to sit in a seat where you're really supportive of the song. And it requires, I've had people when I've done clinics and master classes, when I would talk about country music or something like that, and they would go, isn't it boring? And I'd go, I would do a 5-minute dissertation on a whole note,
hmm.
the essence of how to play a whole note. If you got your chops up, and I mean, I look back to like playing with Billy Cobham and stuff like that. I mean, if your chops are up, it's all there. But sometimes on the simplest songs are by far the hardest songs, because you're so vulnerable and you're so exposed. And your response to those is really critical to the essence of the song. So um, I don't know if I've answered the question, but
You totally
it,
did.
but
You totally did.
yeah, but the I love the position of being an accompanist, and I'm getting ready right now. I mean, I've been working on the songs, but we just finished a 6-week 4-piece acoustic tour with Lyle Lovett, and now we're getting ready to go out with the 15-piece band. But we have songs in there. There's a song called North Dakota in his show, and intent on stage of the players that are doing that is so deep, because it's one of these songs that you're listening to breaths and stuff, and every time it's performed it's different. We don't play to There's no sequencing or clicks in the show or anything, so every song really is really intense listening between all of the players. And when it's over, you look out at the audience and they're kind of like just sitting with their mouths hanging open. It's been such a kind of a deep experience, and we look at each other and just kind of go, this is pretty cool.
It's cool when you see a band cook like that,
Oh
no
yeah.
question. Um, I had the opportunity to, because I'm always fascinated with people's, I guess, um we joke around one time about, if somebody says it's going to cost you X amount for my band to play there, it's not for that show. It's all the learning and all the experience that got you to that level.
Yeah.
And I interviewed Todd Zuckerman a couple of years ago, and I asked him simply, how often do you practice in the run of a day and a run of a week? And the answer he gave me was interesting. He said not a lot, because he had the muscle memory down, and he said he found when he practiced a lot, all he did was kind of regurgitate maybe stuff in his head that he just kind of wanted to lose. I'll
Yeah.
ask you the same question, because I find this fascinating for people that play at your level.
I think his answer was great. Um, I never practice, but I play a lot because I have projects that I have to do. So if I have something like getting ready for Lyle's thing or going over songs for this gig I'm doing this weekend, um, uh, I can sit here and play for hours because I'm focused on something. But to actually sit and just run scales or something like that, I never do that. There's so many times where actually, if I end up with a week off, I'm thrilled,
Yeah.
and I don't play at all because I come back fresher to it. Because, like he said, regurgitating this stuff. There's times where I'm playing, and people maybe are all going, "God, he's so good," and I'm sitting there going, "Heard it, been there, done it, okay."
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's X amount of things you can do with your instrument, and there's times where you start to feel maybe repetitive and just kind of want to get away from it. So I'll go out and just work in the yard for a couple of days and just kind of clear my head. But to actually come up and take the bass and just sit here and play, if I'm not playing to something, I just don't care about it. I have to have a reason for doing it, which is learning songs or, or practicing for a specific gig.
That's your creative muse. That's your
And I'm
creative
in the
move.
zone. Yeah.
So one of the things I because I've used this line before, and I use it in the context of I'll be doing a sound check, and I'll ask the tech, "Can you give me a little bit more kick?" And it's like, yeah. And then I find out they don't give me a kick. They basically placeboed me. And I found something where you said you had the producer switch in the
Oh
studio.
yeah.
Is this a real thing? My bass
Absolutely.
player friends would love this.
Okay, I'll give you as quick as I can the story of it. I was doing, I think it was might have been the show Knight Rider. Um, and we were at Universal Studios working because they used to have a recording studio on the Universal lot. We did a lot of TV shows there. And you had barricades, baffles up. So like basically this is all anybody would see is like top half of your head because everything you got to have soundproofing and all that. I was sitting next to Tommy Tedesco, the great Tommy Tedesco, and the conductor, and it was probably a 40-piece orchestra on this thing. And the conductor was across the room, and he goes, "Hey, Tommy, could we hear mandolin on this one?" So Tommy, gives him that, bends down, picks up Mando, starts playing. He goes, "No, that's not it. Could you try?" And he got a 12 string, I go, "Okay," bends down. Well, he eventually heard the instrument he wanted to hear, but I'm dying next to Tommy because all Tommy had was his acoustic guitar. And he just kept bending over and sitting back up again, pretending he was picking up another instrument. And I'm sitting there looking at him. And when we finished, I said to him, I said, "I just learned more in 5 minutes how this business works than I did in all my years of formal training." So I went home because there's times where you're in the studio and you got a producer who's not necessarily musical, they're there for other reasons, and they're saying, "Can you make it shimmer, make it more mauve," whatever. So I ended up just going home and drilling a hole in my bass and put a switchcraft toggle switch in it. It didn't have any wires or anything like that. And so what I would do is, like, if they asked for something, I would make sure they could see me flip the switch. Then I would just change my hand position a bit and they would go, because they thought I had changed something. But we can all be deceived. There's so many times where you're in situations where you say, let me hear that." And they go, "Oh yeah, that's much better." And then the guy kind of goes, "I haven't done it yet." Because your mind is anticipating it. So unless it's something so profoundly obvious, it was kind of just a fun thing to do. And I did one. I have a signature bass with Warwick, and we put a producer switch on that. And the one I have, it's a rotating switch on it, so it goes through all these colors, and each one of them theoretically is a different sound. And the last one, if it's not what you want to hear, there's a little hand inlaid that's giving the finger. So it's just one of these things that was kind of a fun thing. But the thing that was great was back in the early days of Bass Player magazine, when Jim Roberts was the editor, every April 1st issue, they would put fake ads in it for April Fools. But people didn't know that that's what was going on. And they actually put an ad in for my producer switch. And they said, "You have no idea how many people have written wanting to know where they can get this." And I'm sitting there going, I should have just bought a shitload of Switchcraft switches and sold them for like $25 a piece or something like that.
Well, I can just see in the studio too, where you're cooking along, and all of a sudden the producer asks for something. You take one bass off and you put on the other one. It's like the guy knows, okay, I've misspoke.
Yeah,
I got a couple minutes left here. You
sure.
get some stuff to do. I really appreciate your time. This is a hypothetical. You're a busy guy. You're still hard at it. But if you decided tomorrow that
Yeah.
okay, I'm done. I'm hanging it up. It's been a good run, but I just want to spend time in the garden and whatever. What would be, I guess, a signature piece, or is there a signature piece that somebody would go, "This is Leland. This is what I want to be remembered for," or has it been done yet?
Well, it's all in different ways. I mean, there's people that come up to me all the time and they go, "Man, Jackson Browne's Doctor My Eyes, man, that song." I love. Others that come up with James Taylor and going, "God, Smiling Face, that we love that bass part." Others that come up and they go, "Stratus, man, Billy Cobham." So it's like in all different genres too. So, you know, yeah, it would really be up to other people. I wouldn't want to pick it because some of the stuff that I really found fascinating that I've played on, some of that stuff that really didn't really get much light of day. So, you know, what I look for in a part is different than what a fan or an observer or another player might look at something that was influential to them. I've always been just really happy and proud to be part of this community of players, and I don't really have any anticipation or expectation of legacy or any of that. But the thing I would love is like if somebody's listening to a song 50 years from now, if there's still a world 50 years from now,
Yeah.
the way things are going. But if somebody's listening to it and they're digging it and they're having really loving what they're hearing, and they don't have to know it's me or anything, but if it brings somebody happiness, it's a job well done at that point.
I want to thank you for doing this. And I think whether you like it or not, you know, we're going to look back 50, 60, 70 years and they're going to be, you know, they're going to be talking about Mr. Leland Sklar, no question. Thank you so much for doing this. You're a busy man. It took us a little while. We got it done. And I promise, sir, you will get a copy before we post it.
Oh, I trust you implicitly. I think we're good.
Thank you very much. Hit subscribe. We bring guys like this to you all the time. Thanks, folks.
Okay, Sean. Take care, man.